Hello. Excellent. This should work. Does it work, Marta? Can you
Yes,
confirm
of
that my
course.
screen can be seen? Very good. Thank you, Marta, for this introduction. My name is Lucas. I'm joining you today from the beautiful city of Linz in Austria, which is a bit gray today. And I will go into more details with regards to vulnerability management, specifically at the Eclipse Foundation. So this should be very interesting for you. As before, this segment will take roughly 15 minutes, and it will be recorded. We'll have a small quiz to recap the discussion, and yeah, we'll publish everything shortly, so that for those who joined later or have to leave early or want to share it with friends or colleagues, you have an opportunity to do so. All right, vulnerability management at Eclipse Foundation. There are three ways to confidentially report vulnerabilities to the foundation. Two of them are already available to everyone by default without anyone having to do anything for it. And the third one is opt-in. First one is the security mailing list. It's security@eclipse-foundation.org. Second one is a dedicated GitLab repo under Eclipse Foundation's GitLab instance. The repo is called Vulnerability Reports. And the third option is for projects to host their source code on GitHub. It's called GitHub Repository Security Advisories, and you have to opt in for it. We'll look at each of those options in more detail next. First one, security mailing lists. Give me a second. So the address is security@eclipsefoundation.org. It's one contact point for all projects under the Eclipse Foundation that are the open source projects that we steward, but also infrastructure, Eclipse Foundation projects, so internal projects and so on, all have this contact point for security issues. The messages are received by us, the Eclipse Foundation security team. We accept encrypted messages using OpenPGP, but that's not a strict requirement. And as Marta already mentioned before, Eclipse Foundation is a CNA, that means a CVE numbering authority. And this is also the official point of contact for the Eclipse CNA. How does it work? So first of all, we recommend everyone to include this address in their security file, in their source code repo, because that's the canonical location where reporters will look for a point of contact. You can add it as your primary contact or as a fallback. When messages go onto that confidential list, they are received by the Eclipse Foundation security team. We perform initial triage. We see if it's an actual valid report. Lately, we've been receiving some AI-generated reports. Some of them are not relevant. Some of them are relevant. So we do initial triage and then forward it to the project. We do that by creating a ticket in the vulnerability reports repository that are also mentioned as the second way of reporting. But if something goes into onto the security mailing list, then we create this ticket. Or if an organization opted into GitHub private advisories, then we open the issue there. But that's something that a project has to explicitly opt into or ask us for. Yeah, and then we accompany the process of fixing the vulnerability. We inform the team first about the vulnerability and the ticket. We ask if they need any, or if you need any assistance in writing up the CVE entry, and so on. We check back regularly if there are any advancements and blockers, and we coordinate the conversation between the security reporter and the project. Second way of reporting is this vulnerability reports repo. It's one dedicated repo also for all projects under the Eclipse Foundation. Address is gitlab.eclipse.org/security/vulnerability-reports. We'll publish the slides as well, so you can easily find the URLs. Issues created in that repository are confidential by default. And how does it work? As said before, either we create the ticket there because we received a report by some other means, typically from the security mailing list, or reporters create their own issue. The requirement or the barrier to do so is they need a Eclipse Foundation account. Some specifics about this repository. The issues are only visible to people assigned to the repository. So we as security team have to specifically assign project members or committers or the project security team to the issue. And we as security team also see the issue. Also for the reporter, they have to create an Eclipse Foundation account, and then we can add them to the issue so that you can discuss the issue with the reporter. Otherwise, the communication happens via us. We coordinate it if they don't create an account. You need to obviously be logged into your Eclipse Foundation account to see the issue. And one specific thing about this is, or one thing to remember, when the issue is finally resolved, the CVE has been published, and we also publish the issue, the whole discussion becomes visible. So there is the description on the top, and then all the discussion threads that you usually have in GitLab issues are also visible to the public. So you should make sure if any information that you don't want to be seen publicly or that is incorrect or irrelevant is removed before making the issue public. That's what the repository looks in a web browser. You see the red arrow on the right. It shows a link that you click in order to create such an issue. And then you get a form with the title. The title should always start with the name of the project because this repository is for all Eclipse projects. So it's easier to associate it with the project if that's already in the beginning, like in the prefix of the issue title. Yeah, in the description box, we have a bunch of information that should make it easier for a reporter to fill in the required information. And then the third option, called GitHub Repository Security Advisories, bit of a lengthy name, that is opt-in. That means GitHub repositories or projects with GitHub repositories need to enable it. They can do so with the Eclipse self-service, OtterDoc, and should then also mention it in their security file so that security reporters know that this should be used instead or in addition to the security mailing list or the GitLab repository. It's totally fine to use all of them, or reports that come for your project will end up up with you no matter where they were reported. So we take care of that. These advisories on GitHub are also confidential by default, unpublished. They can be seen by the project security team, by us, the Eclipse Foundation security team, and by people specifically mentioned there, typically the reporter or whoever opened the issue. They can also see the contents of the issue and the discussion in there. Some specifics to GitHub security advisories. Here it's the other way around as with GitLab. Only the description becomes visible when the issue is published. This means that anything that is in the discussion and should be also made public needs to be added to the description on top of the issue page. And another important thing for reporters, so maybe also for you, because as Marta said, reporters and projects are sometimes the same people. So if you ever use this feature for a project under the Eclipse Foundation, please make sure to not request the CVE ID from GitHub. GitHub is also a CNA, CVE numbering authority, so it can also issue CVE numbers. But it's important that for any CVEs for the Eclipse Foundation, these numbers are issued by the Eclipse Foundation itself. So if it happens, we can still rectify it, but it's better to not request a CVE from GitHub to start with. This is what it looks like. You go to the GitHub's security page and then the GitHub repo security page. And then you have a button to draft a new security advisory. It also has a title, CVE identifier, where you say request CVE ID later via us, via Eclipse Foundation, and a description of the issue. One recent addition, so that's for the ways of reporting security issues. One recent addition to this process is the per project security mailing list, not pre-project. That's a typo. I'll fix it before uploading the slides. The per project security mailing list is a mailing list for the security teams for each project. This is not used for reporting security issues, but rather for communication between us, the Eclipse Foundation security team, and the individual projects. This mailing list is unarchived, so you can't browse the conversations online. Typically, the addresses are project name -security@eclipse.org, and you'll find it in the mailing list database of Eclipse under the URL on this slide. One thing that's not fully solved yet, or is under discussion, not only in the Eclipse Foundation, but in the industry in general, are end of life or end of support versions or projects. The problem is what happens if a reporter finds an issue that's in an unsupported versions. Well, first we need to check if that issue also exists in a still supported version or product or project. Then it needs to be fixed or addressed. If it doesn't, it's usually not addressed. And the CVE entry has a tag or a possibility to tag it as unsupported when assigned. But yeah, there is still an ongoing discussion about how to store this information about end of life or end of support versions or projects. One ongoing effort is the OpenEOX project that has some discussion and materials under the URL on this slide. As a recap, how do we as a security team support you as Eclipse Foundation projects in this whole process? We usually receive a lot of the reports, vulnerability reports in our mailing list. We redirect it to the projects. We also monitor the GitHub security advisories and the GitLab vulnerability reports repos. And we make sure that the projects are made aware of the issues. We regularly check back. We provide assistance in writing CVE entries, advisory texts, in communicating with reporters, and we handle the CVE assignment. So we reserve the CVE numbers when an issue is confirmed, and we publish the CVE numbers when the issue is resolved. And this leads us to another round of quiz questions. Marder, may I ask you to open the quiz for everyone? Thank you. So we have a bunch of questions. They are fewer and, if I remember correctly, a bit easier than the first round of quiz. We'll still give you a couple of minutes. As before, we will have a Q&A session at the end of this segment. So if you have any questions, make sure to add them to the chat window. You can already add them now. We'll first end the quiz and talk about the correct answers, and then move over to the Q&A. Okay, we have a majority of answers from the participants. And we still have some time. So let's wait another minute, see if we get more replies. All right, I will end the poll and show the correct answers. Thanks everyone for participating. This window jumps to my other screen when I click on something interesting. First question. Yes, we have a security mailing list. We have private tickets, either on GitLab or on GitHub. We unfortunately don't have a bug bounty. Some reporters ask us for it, but as it's a non-for-profit organization, we don't have such a thing. Who has access to a private issue? Not everyone on the internet, luckily. The project security team on GitHub by default, in GitLab we assign them, and everyone who has contributed to the project does not have access. Only the project lead is not correct either. But the project leads are typically part of the ones who have access. Who can submit a vulnerability report? Easy answer is, or the simple answer is, everyone. All right. So much for the quiz. And I have one more slide with further readings about Eclipse Foundation security policy and the Eclipse Foundation handbook on vulnerability management for those of you who want to dig deeper into vulnerability management. There are also resources from the CVE program and a very good guide from another open source foundation, the OpenSSF, Open Source Security Foundation, which also has a similar process as we and has some good documentation if someone wants to cross-check this. And that concludes my talk. Thank you very much for tuning in. If we have some questions, we have time now. Let me see in the chat window if I can find it. Okay. We have one question about the CVSS core and whether we have opinions about certain problems with CVSS. Marta, do you want to take that question?
Sure. So CVSS is the way to score a security vulnerability to have an indication how serious it is, going from 0 to 10. The score takes into account only certain factors, like which of the security principles is broken, if this remote access or not, and factors like that. This result is not always accurate, and it doesn't always reflect how serious a given problem is. So there are some problems with this. My opinion is that you shouldn't take it as the only information about the vulnerability that you have, but it is a useful indicator about the vulnerability. What is important to know and understand is that you may have one 10.0 vulnerability that in your case couldn't be exploited because you have put all the mitigations in place. For example, there's a firewall, or if this vulnerability is in an option that you do not use. So in your case, it cannot cause any problems. But instead, the attackers may use a chain of low score vulnerabilities and actually exploit the system. So definitely, it's not the only value, the only indicator you should use in a vulnerability. That will be my pretty long answer to this question. Do we have other questions pending? And if we do not have, we have posted the link to the survey. Please fill the survey to give us feedback about this session, and also only people who fill the survey on both sessions will receive a badge after finishing, because we need to identify you. So please take a minute or two to fill the survey. We still have 5 minutes to go to answer 1 or 2 questions. So do we have any? I think that we do not have more questions right now, so that will be the time to give you back the 4 minutes left to the top of the hour. Thank you everyone for joining this time. Please remember that we have a second session at the same time in a week, and please register to join the second session too. Yeah, we'll be happy to have you with us in a week. And if you would like to contact us, yeah, there is the security team mailing list, so you can contact us easily there. So thank you everyone for being with us and participating, and see you hopefully in a week.
Thank you. Goodbye.